Welcome back, GRD 121 Computer Graphics, to part 3 of our turkey masks, or we'll just call it PS3 turkeys. And we have 2 turkeys right now on our exercise. And again, I guess the videos are getting a little long. It was like 20 minutes, 25 minutes for the first 2. And now we're working on this one. But we are doing a lot of stuff. We did Magic Wand, we did the quick selection tool to make a raster mask, and we worked on our raster mask on our turkey. We did drop shadows. We even created our drop shadows into separate layers. We grouped layers. We did a colorize. We did a vignette. So we did a lot of different stuff here. So we're doing a lot of things here in this exercise, and that's good. We're combining a lot of things. Now the last thing we'll do here, and this is real easy, so this won't take long at all, we're just going to use some text. And I haven't worked with text a whole lot in Photopea, but there's always a good time to start, and this works kind of like Photoshop. It's not always, even Photoshop isn't the best place to work with text, but I'm going to take my text tool here, and I guess I'll click here, so whatever I create should be on a layer above Turkey Cartoon. So it's kind of the top layer. So I'll take my text tool, and it's saying 24 point, and maybe I'll just make it really big right now so it's easy to see, and I'll just click here. It says font deja vu loaded, and there's a cursor there, so I'm just going to type Happy Thanksgiving, even though we're past Thanksgiving. And when you have text like this, you can use your move tool and grab it and move it around, and you could even scale it. It'll still stay text, so if you need to change the font, which we will, because it's not a really nice font right now, but I'm going to grab on the corner right now. You can even stretch it out a little if you want to. But if you want to change the font, let's see different ways you could change the font. I know if you use your text tool, you can do it. Let's see if you double click here, if that lets you do anything. Let me see this again. If I go here, no, but if I double click on the layer, the T layer, it'll go here to the font, so I could do that. And that's probably the best thing. And now these are like web fonts. I forgot what I used, some scripty kind of font the first time, and these aren't the greatest looking things. I forget what I used, but I'm just gonna, I thought it started with a C. How about Damien? Let's see what that looks like. Oh, that's okay. That's not too bad. And again, you can keep making the font bigger here, but I think what I'm going to do is go on this, and that now I'll make this bigger. I'll hold shift and grab on the corner. That doesn't look that's not too bad a font. And we're also going to warp it if we can. Now I think to warp it, we have to double click on this T thing over here. So let's warp it. Double click here, and it should highlight, and they have a warp. And the way this works, at first I was like, wait a minute, how come these sliders don't work? But you have to select a style of warp, and I'm just going to arc it. And you could do like a flag kind of shape. These are the same ones from like Photoshop and Illustrator. I'll just do an arc. They have arc and arch. Let's see. I think arc looks better. It's a little more natural. And it has a bend of 50%. I'm going to bring this back down to normal. It just needs a little bit. Too much, especially with a script style, you don't want a big arch. It would be nice if we had this for Gravit, if they had a warp tool. That's what I keep saying. I wish they had a warp tool, but they don't. So we'll put this in here, and you could distort it in different directions, but I don't want to. And I'll hit OK. And then if I want to change the color, I can just go up here, and I can sample something. Now, usually you have an eyedropper, but they're just showing a crosshair. So I might just sample a dark brown in here and hit OK. Make sure you hit OK, and then click on my move tool to see what it looks like, and that looks pretty good, except it gets a little hard to read around the trees, and that's where on the sample that I did, this thing, I put like a glow. See, that's not the same font, but I put like a glow on it. So let's just try to put a glow. That's a layer style, just like the drop shadow. I'm gonna put a glow, and you could put an outline too. I think they have a stroke you could put on here, and I'll go to layer, and I'm selecting it with my move tool, and I'm going to layer, and I'll go to layer style. Now they do have a stroke that you could put on it, so if you wanted to put a white stroke on it, now it comes red by default, and if you clicked on here and you just made it white, it gets a nice little pop on it, and you can make it a little thicker. I'll hit OK, and it's outside, it's normal, and you could even increase it a little bit like that. Actually, that looks pretty good. You could even put a stroke and then a drop shadow, which might be kind of cool. That's not what I did on my sample, but I put a stroke on here, and I can also add a drop shadow. I'll click on here for a drop shadow. Now that looks nice, except it's probably a little too far away. I'll bring it a little bit closer, just to make it puts a little shadow behind the outline. So again, let me just show you. On stroke, it's on outside, and it's about 13 pixels, at least with that font. Now, if you use a different font, you might have different settings. You can even turn down the opacity. If the outline's a little strong, you turn it down a little bit. And then the drop shadow, when I go here, again, I just adjusted the distance a little bit, but it looks okay up to the left, especially since I have the shadows over there. And I could bring it a little closer. I don't need a whole lot of shadow on there. And if you want more, you can make it more opaque so that it's kind of darker. You could do that. So I'll take it up there to like 60 or something, or 70. I guess that's okay. And again, it is a blur, but that looks a lot better. And then when you're done with this, you can hit OK. Now remember, these things are effects that you could turn off. So if you don't like them, if you're like, I don't like the stroke, I don't like the drop shadow, I just want it like that, you could do that, and you could try something else. But actually, I like the stroke, and I like the drop shadow. Or if you thought, oh, the stroke's too thick, well, double click on the stroke, and instead of 13, maybe go down to like 10 and hit OK. And if you want to change the color, you could just change the color of the font. So you could double click right here on the T thing, and if you wanted your font maybe brighter, you could choose the brighter color and hit OK. And then I'll go on my move tool just to see it. Now it's a little bit brighter. I don't know if that looks better or not. But anyway, I think that's it. That looks pretty good. I'll do a file save. And I'll show you one thing here. This is for the non-Google Drive people. If the non-Google Drive people, which I'm doing right now, wanted to share this PSD with me, now you would have to think about downloading it and then uploading it somewhere, and obviously you can't get through my Warren with that. What you could do as a real quick thing, if you finish this and you're like, wow, this looks really cool, you could do this. You can say File, Publish Online, and if you check Photopea.com, it'll say your picture will be published at Photopea.com under a public URL known only to you. And if you hit OK, it's publishing. I think it's going. And there it is. The entire Photoshop file saved in the cloud at a different URL. Now, what I'd recommend is bookmarking or copying this thing and pasting it somewhere so you have it. It's in your history or something, but, copy it. A lot of times I use this just text file. All this stuff, you can see it has all this junk in it. Every time I copy and paste something, I'm just going to paste it in here. That way I have that URL somewhere right now, so I don't lose it, because otherwise where are you going to have it? So I'll go back here, and that way you can share that URL with me, and I can have your Photoshop file. And in addition to that, two other things you should probably do is export this as a Photoshop. So if you're not working in Google Drive, and you just did a file save here. Now it doesn't say save anymore. Actually, that's because I'm in this one. I'm in the one with the URL. So you can even close this up. I don't need that open. I highlighted the URL, I copied it. I can even go here and do Command-C, copy it, and close it up. Now as long as you remember that or have that, you could always go back to it. That's how I share some of the files with you. Now here's your file, or my file, and I could do save. And what I'll do again is export it. So I'm going to go to my downloads, wherever my downloads are, and get rid of the last one. And I'll right click and say move to trash. And then I'll just do a file, save as PSD. That way it's downloaded to my computer. It's safe. And I also have a link that I did at Photopea.com. Now if you're on Google Drive, you could share your Google Drive file. So you don't have to do that if you're using Drive. And also what you can do is I'll do one other thing here. I'll do File, and I'll do export as, and I'll save a JPEG. Now this one I want you to upload, and I'll show you what I want you to do. Export as JPEG. Now if we do JPEG, it's kind of larger right now, so even leave the quality on 70%, but go in here to percent and make it 50%. Highlight in here and type in 50, and if you just click on another window, it should stay in proportion. So it's making a smaller file to upload, which is fine, because that way I'm just looking at your finished version right now. I think that's what I did with this one. 900 by 600. See, it was 1800 by 1200. That's what I did. So this is the one I did at smaller file. So that's what you're doing here. So I'm just doing it 50%, just so it's a smaller file when you upload it to my Warren. And then if you do save, it'll export a JPEG. And that's the JPEG you can upload, because you can't upload a PSD. So you can share a PSD with me either through Photopea.com or through your Google Drive. And you could download your JPEG of this. I'd like to see both your Photoshop and your JPEG when you're finished, but just so I could look at your JPEG, what you could do is go back to my Warren and obviously log in again, because it doesn't stay open that long, and go to coursework and go down to Turkey Masks. And to upload your JPEG, all you have to do is go to Add Comment, Insert Image, the one with the mountain and the sun there, and just go to your source And you have to do upload here in this Moxie Manager if you get to there. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have to do that. And then I'm just going to go to my downloads because that's where the JPEG got sent. And you just have to find it in your downloads. That's why I said you should make sure you display your extensions. So if you have a JPEG and a Photoshop, even though when you click on it, you should see the difference. But there's my JPEG, and it's real small. You can see it's a lot smaller file size. PSD is like 12.9 megabytes. So that's a good way you'll also know the difference. So obviously that has a huge file size. But the JPEG is only 85 kilobytes. So that's the one I want to upload to my Warren. So I'm going to open that, and then I'm going to insert, and there it is. 900 by 600 still might be too big to fit in your window, so you could even maybe do like 600 or something. And if you click, it'll go back 600 by 400. Remember, that's the proportion because it was a 6 by 4 inches, so it's still the same proportion, even in pixels. And that's all you should have to do. Hit OK. And if you want to make it smaller so it shows in the window, you can do that. You could make it show nicely in the window. I mean, I could always see it, but there it is. If you want to even make it smaller, you can. There's your little Thanksgiving card to me, and then just hit save. And there it is. And I'll look at it and go, oh, wow, look at that. And I could scroll back and forth and see it and stuff like that. So I'll see your finished product. And then what you can also do is you can add a comment, another one, and insert a link, and paste that URL that you made with either your Google Drive, if you share your Google Drive file, or if you weren't using Google Drive like I was not, I have that photopea.com URL that they created for me, and I'm sure they deleted it at some point, so don't figure like that'll keep it forever. But if we put it in there now and target a new window, that way I'll have a link to your Photoshop file. And that's without Google Drive, so that's pretty cool for free stuff. You know, I know it's not Photoshop, but it's free, so, you know, that ain't bad. So this thing can open up and I can look at your Photoshop file if I want to, which I will. And then I can also, where's that at? Oh, it went in here, it went in the same window. So there's your link to the photopea.com thing. And then here's your final image. So this is like a little preview of what you did, and here's the Photoshop file. So that's what I'd like you to do to PS3. So hopefully you enjoyed that, even though it's past Thanksgiving, but we can still enjoy that our little turkey togetherness a little bit. So that's PS3 turkey masks, and we'll be doing more with masks and selections and cloning before the semester wraps up.